What if Anakin reached his full potential before the Clone Wars, before anything of Revenge of the Sith? What if that happened? Well, today I want to explore that idea, and before we do, please hit the like button, subscribe, it helps so much. Appreciate you if you do. Only like 20% of people that watch this are subscribed. Thank you. Anyways, you're all here to watch a video. So, ignore if it gets crazy, ignore if it gets really bends canon a lot. I was writing this and I was like, goodness gracious, sometimes this just goes a little wacky, but hey, that's the fun of it. We're doing a what if he reached his full potential before the, third movie. So, yeah, have fun, enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I do a lot of these, so if it's your first time on the channel, check out my other videos. We do lore, we do news. Alright, it's been almost a minute. Let's go here. What if Anakin reached his full potential in Attack of the Clones right now? Anakin and Obi-Wan were out on a balcony inside the Jedi Temple preparing for a friendly training duel. The two of them had spent countless hours training against each other, getting better every day, improving alongside each other. Obi-Wan had spent years training Anakin in a way that would make his former master Qui-Gon Jinn proud. From a young age, Obi-Wan had encouraged Anakin to feel the Force, not to think, to use his instincts, follow the Force to do what is right, train him in a way that Qui-Gon would have trained him, rather than in a way that the Council might prefer. And through Obi-Wan's teachings, Anakin and him had formed a truly unbreakable bond. Anakin and Obi-Wan had come to know that Qui-Gon was right about the Council, about the Jedi becoming too reliant on the Senate, rather than the Force and the people of the Republic. So together they followed Qui-Gon's influence long after his death. Sometimes, it would even feel like he was watching. But by the year 22 BBY, Anakin had surpassed Obi-Wan in lightsaber combat, and Obi-Wan was proud of him for this. In training, Anakin had suddenly mastered all 7 forms of lightsaber combat at just 19 years old, and he was focused on learning everything he could about the Force. Anakin was dedicating everything to this training, and his growing power, it was largely kept from the Council, as they would scold him for non-traditional training nowadays. Obi-Wan, a Jedi Master, would allow Anakin to research ancient Jedi texts hidden away inside the restricted section of the archives. Obi-Wan would take them to Anakin in a secluded room, and Anakin would spend hours or days researching, practicing the Force, becoming the best possible version of himself, all the light side power he could get. And with this immense training, Anakin would duel Obi-Wan on the balcony. Anakin dove deep into the Force power of Serenity, allowing the Force to give him the strength to quickly beat Obi-Wan. And the two began fighting, Anakin surrounded by the Force, feeling it like never before. He spun his saber behind him to block a strike from Obi-Wan, then used the Force to freeze him in place, disarmed him, and Anakin smiled as he'd reached a level that he'd never felt before. Obi-Wan smiled as well. Anakin, through extreme dedication to the Force, had become the most powerful Jedi that Obi-Wan had ever seen at just 19 years old, rivaling even Master Yoda. And the events of Attack of the Clones would begin here, beginning to unfold. Anakin and Obi-Wan would be assigned to protect Padme, and Anakin's love for her would be reignited. While protecting her, Anakin had a strong vision of his home world, Tatooine, where he saw his mother tied up in a Tusken camp. The vision ended quickly, and he told Obi-Wan that his mother was in danger. They both agreed this time that Anakin would need to save her, but then they sensed Padme in danger as well, and the events of Attack of the Clones would unfold again, with Obi-Wan finding the Camino Dart, Anakin being assigned to protect Padme on Naboo. And keep in mind during this, that Anakin is still having trouble controlling his power. He knows that he has all this power, but using it effectively, controlling it all the time, it's still a great challenge. And before taking off for Naboo, Anakin and Obi-Wan had agreed that Anakin must divert his course to save his mother. It was clear she was in danger, and it was Anakin's duty as a Jedi to protect those in need. This time, it just so happened to be his mother. So Anakin would take Padme to the Lars homestead, where Anakin found his vision to be true. With Padme safe inside the Lars home, Anakin took off to find his mother, focusing on his vision to be able to find her rather quickly. And as Anakin walked into the small hut with his mother, she was clearly in pain and losing her life. Anakin focused the Force inside of him to put his hand on his mother's head, healing her, giving her the strength necessary to be returned close to full health. Shmi looked up at Anakin in amazement as Anakin smiled. This is one of the happiest moments of his life, and Obi-Wan's teachings allowed him to save her. Anakin and Shmi emerged from the hut, and Anakin did not kill every Tusken. He ignited his saber and force-pushed anyone who got within 10 feet with a power that warned them not to mess with these people any longer. Once Shmi was returned, Anakin and Padme said goodbye to her again, but Anakin promised to visit much more. The Tuskens would not mess with them again. Anakin and Padme took off for Naboo now, where they became much closer, and events continued to play out like they did in the movie, with them slowly falling in love with each other. And eventually, Obi-Wan would call Anakin for help, continuing the events of Attack of the Clones, with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme being captured and put up for execution in the Geonosian arena. Anakin had the power to avoid this fate, but he determined the best way to get to Obi-Wan was to get captured and find him from there. The three would escape, the Jedi would come, and Anakin and Obi-Wan would chase down Dooku through Geonosis. And now, in the hangar bay, Anakin and Obi-Wan confronted Dooku. Obi-Wan said they'll take Dooku together, and Anakin, no longer clouded by the anger and being held back, agreed to this. Anakin entered a state of serenity and even opened himself to a version of Force Meld, allowing Obi-Wan's power to increase alongside him. Dooku taunted them, and the battle began. Dooku was perhaps the most talented lightsaber wielder in the galaxy, but today, he would meet his match, and the three fought, with Anakin and Obi-Wan immediately starting to overwhelm Dooku, catching him off guard with their power together. But Dooku spun around and caught Obi-Wan with a blast of Force lightning, cutting off his hand before sending him flying. Dooku was still a master of Force wielding, of the dark side, of the lightsaber, and Anakin watched as his master was thrown across the room. Anakin reached out with the Force to grab Obi-Wan's lightsaber, now wielding two sabers. He attacked Dooku with unseen-before power. Dooku found himself to be no match for the young Skywalker, and he quickly knew it. He began throwing rocks and other loose items at Anakin with the Force, and Anakin, standing completely stoic, surrounded by the light side, crushed them in mid-air without moving his hand, or threw them back at Dooku with twice the speed. Dooku gave himself fully to the dark side to beat Anakin, and the two dueled again, red saber barely blocking the strikes from Anakin's blue and green sabers. And eventually Anakin saw an opening and used it to call upon a power he'd read about in his secret training. Dooku was tired and had his lightsaber down. Anakin caught him by surprise by using electric judgment, the light side counter to Force lightning. With one quick burst, Dooku was blasted with a quick strike and knocked to the ground, dazed and confused. When he eventually came to, Anakin was holding the blue and green sabers to Dooku's neck and said he was under arrest. And from the entrance of the hangar bay, clones came sprinting in from behind Master Yoda, who had seen Anakin use this power that no one his young should be able to master. Anakin looked at Yoda and could not read his expression, a mix of amusement almost, concern, and being impressed by Anakin, defeating this Sith Lord rather easily. Back in the Jedi Temple a while later, Anakin was called to a council meeting. Obi-Wan had recently been promoted to the council, and was likely speaking on Anakin's behalf. Anakin just hoped this wasn't going to be him getting in trouble for his acts versus Dooku. As for the galaxy, the Clone Wars were underway. The Republic had a clear advantage, with Dooku being arrested. Palpatine, playing both sides of the war, was extremely angry with Dooku for losing to this teenager of Anakin. But Palpatine was even more angry at Anakin, who seemed to be fully embracing the Jedi, embracing the light side to reach his full power. The two had grown apart throughout the years, as Obi-Wan turned out to be exactly what Anakin needed, embracing the teachings of Qui-Gon, and Palpatine did not have nearly as much say, as Anakin could just go to Obi-Wan with his problems. This frustrated Palpatine, and he knew now that he must take drastic measures to defeat the Jedi, and so he put into motion a plan that would hopefully take out many members of the Jedi Council. Palpatine orchestrated an all-out attack on Coruscant from the Separatists that was set to commence soon, and it was to be a distraction from what is happening on the surface. Palpatine had secretly stationed Hyena-class droid bombers inside of the works next to his secret lair, and once the battle above the planet began, the bombers would head to the Jedi Temple. Palpatine was desperate to counter the growing power of the Jedi without Dooku, and Anakin entered the council chambers, where everyone waited for him. Obi-Wan had a smile on his face as Yoda and Mace Windu looked on patiently. Once Anakin was in the center, the Jedi began discussing Anakin's actions, from helping his mother in need, to defeating a Sith Lord with powers that would consume many young Jedi. The council was not sure what to make of all this, but after much deliberation, they came to the conclusion that Anakin was among the most powerful Jedi, and had almost single-handedly given the Republic the advantage in the war. Because of this, Anakin was to be promoted all the way from Padawan to Jedi Master, easily becoming the youngest Master of all time, nearly 10 years younger than Mace Windu, who held the title before him. And the Jedi came to realize how valuable Anakin was to the Order, and at his age, only the Chosen One could have beaten Dooku, and arrested him without allowing any darkness in. Anakin was to be a leader of these Clone Wars, and had all the privileges of a Jedi Master now. But before Anakin could truly embrace this honor and thank the Jedi, it was reported that a massive Separatist fleet had emerged from hyperspace, and was being countered by the Republic. It appeared the Separatists had decided to end this war, here and now, one way or another, and the Council began to immediately discuss their immediate action, but then fighters were heard from above. Palpatine had launched these bombers, hidden away on Coruscant. Anakin understood what was about to happen before it could actually happen, and he used his power to create a force wall around the Council walls. A second later, bombs dropped by these Separatist fighters shook the temple from the bottom to the top. Some of the Council members joined Anakin in creating this force shield to keep the Council intact. Anakin looked up to see a bomb headed straight for them, so he broke his connection to the shield, caught the bomb in mid-air, and used his power to guide the bomb to a cluster of the bomber ships above, creating a chain reaction of explosions. Anakin recovered himself to find the Council Tower starting to crumble, so he blew a hole in the window, and one by one the Jedi scaled the now leaning tower up to the collapsing roof below. Republic troop transports were landing near the roof to pick up the Jedi in this emergency scenario, allowing the Council members to escape the damage without any casualties. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for the Jedi inside the temple. Hundreds, if not thousands, were killed in the temple bombing, as half of the Council members went to rescue those that could have survived, while the rest headed for space to fight off the Separatist fleet. The Republic, they were able to cause a Separatist retreat, and it became clear that the main objective was striking the heart of the Jedi. Largely because of Anakin's quick thinking, the Council had survived, but the temple was decimated, with at least 1,000 casualties inside. No one knew how the droid bombers had gotten past the Republic, and been able to infiltrate the temple. They had to be stationed here, ready for orders, but how? By who? Anakin and Obi-Wan later on sat in the temple, the ruins of it, contemplating how this could happen, when Obi-Wan had a revelation. He recalled how Dooku had told him on Geonosis that the Republic was under the control of the Sith, and now Dooku was the one imprisoned. Anakin and Obi-Wan knew what they had to do, taking off to the maximum security prison that Dooku was being kept in. And once inside the prison, the two Jedi went to Dooku, surprised to see him talking with Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin and Obi-Wan had entered the prison and used Force concealment to hide from other Force users, not wanting to give Dooku any clue that they were coming. But now, still concealing their powers, the Jedi watched in astonishment as Chancellor Palpatine began lifting Dooku up by his throat, choking him in the air. Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged a quick glance, sprinting in, igniting their lightsabers. Palpatine turned, eyes yellow and an evil smile on his face. He dropped Dooku and motioned up to a camera, turning it back on with the Force. His face had turned back to the cheery, friendly Chancellor as he said, "Ah, Master Jedi, I was just hoping Dooku here would help me get to the bottom of the attack on your temple." Anakin stared and said, "We know what you are now. You're under arrest." And without warning, Obi-Wan was pulled towards Dooku, his lightsaber going right through the chest of Dooku before he even knew what was going on. Palpatine had pulled Obi-Wan into Dooku, killing him. "Help! Help!" Palpatine yelled. "The Jedi are attacking!" Palpatine yelled as he smiled. Anakin prepared to charge at Palpatine when a squad of clones immediately arrived and began firing stun bolts at the Jedi. Anakin and Obi-Wan watched as Palpatine sprinted behind these clones, trying to hide from them, and then he began choking them, smiling, making it seem like the Jedi were the ones doing it. And once the clones were dead, Palpatine had vanished like a blur. The prison now was on high alert, alarms blaring, and the comm on one of the dead clones said, "Jedi Skywalker and Kenobi have killed the prisoner Dooku and a squad of clone troopers. They are armed and dangerous. Shoot to kill." Palpatine smiled to himself as he exited the prison to find his ship waiting for him. If he couldn't destroy the Jedi with the bombers, he would make the whole Republic turn on them. He would always win. Meanwhile, Anakin and Obi-Wan sprinted through the prison, closing doors with the Force to stop clones chasing them, or freezing entire squads in place as they sprinted to the exit. Blast doors in front of them were closed, but Anakin used his newfound power to blast right through them with the Force. As they finally reached the exit, Anakin used the Force again to create a shield behind them, blocking blaster fire as the ship carrying Palpatine began to take off. Anakin and Obi-Wan together grabbed hold of the ship with the Force and brought it back to the ground. Once it was grounded, they pushed the clones behind them into the wall, sprinting for the ship. Anakin ripped the sides off the transport and lifted the clones inside to safety before igniting his lightsaber. Together, him and Obi-Wan leapt at Palpatine. They knew they were taking a huge risk here, but their plan had worked, as right before Anakin could strike down Palpatine, he ignited 2 red sabers. He chose to defend himself, and therefore had revealed himself as a Sith Lord. The battle was now set to rage outside the imposing prison walls on the planet of Coruscant. The air crackled with anticipation as Anakin Skywalker, now a Jedi Master, and Obi-Wan Kenobi faced off the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. This was the moment of destiny, a clash that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The winner of this would have an advantage in the war, and the sky was tinged with hues of red and orange, casting an eerie glow on the entire scene. Anakin stood tall, eyes ablaze with determination, embracing the power that now surged within him. He'd come close to reaching his full potential, his connection to the Force unparalleled, and he knew that he held the advantage even in this battle. The 3 combatants circled each other, lightsabers ignited, humming in the air. Sidious twisted his smile, not knowing he was about to face full power Chosen One, and they moved in unison, Obi-Wan attacking with precision and control, while Anakin unleashed his raw power. With a blinding speed, Anakin closed the distance between himself and Sidious, lightsaber a blur as he relentlessly swung and swung. The Sith Lord was caught off guard by Anakin's newfound strength, struggling to keep up with the onslaught. Every strike was met with an equal, forceful counter from the Jedi Master. Obi-Wan on the side was the strategist, observing the fight, seeking an opening. He provided support from a distance, creating walls of defensive moves, forcing Sidious on his own defensive. Sidious recognized the danger he was in, being caught between perhaps the most powerful Jedi, 2 of them, and he attempted to break free from their assault. Anakin, however, was in a state of pure focus, his mind in perfect harmony with the Force. The Force, the power inside of him, was not overtaking him at this point, and with each passing moment, he grew more attuned to his abilities, thinking he had them fully under control, thinking he was in control of the Force. And a realization dawned upon him. He was the chosen one. He would win this battle. Drawing upon his power, Anakin unleashed a devastating flurry of attacks, lightsaber swirling with incomprehensible speed. The sheer ferocity of his assault overwhelmed Sidious now, struggling to defend himself. The Sith Lord's crimson blade clashed against the vibrant blue of Anakin's, but with each impact, Sidious was forced back, his defenses crumbling, one lightsaber tumbling out of his hand, using the other now to fight back, Obi-Wan joining in on the battle once again, and together, they channeled their powers, striking in perfect harmony. Sidious was still fighting, barely hanging on, realizing now Anakin's strength. Anakin, knowing his strength doubled Sidious's, realizing his full potential, he truly overwhelmed him. The battle reached its climax. Anakin delivered the decisive blow. Embracing his full power, he had become beyond what he ever imagined. Twice the power of Sidious. He embraced another power he'd only read about, one that required a great deal of strength, one that might send him out of his own control, but one that would end this battle and end the war immediately. As Sidious began creating a force storm to counter his opponents, Anakin reached his hand out, giving himself to the Force, using the power of Sever Force against Sidious. The Dark Lord flew back, slamming against the wall, and as he got up, Sidious noticed his strength was largely depleted, and he could feel the Force leaving his body. Still, he lifted his lightsaber and swung at Anakin. Anakin ducked, kicking him in the back, sending Sidious to the ground. Anakin was toying with him now, the power consuming him, angry at the man he thought of as a father figure for manipulating him every day for years. Palpatine had always been so genuine, so nice to Anakin, but Obi-Wan had become the mentor Anakin needed. In recent years, the relationship between Palpatine and Anakin had diminished, so now Anakin was fighting the man that had tried to manipulate him, the man that was controlling the war, the man that had overseen execution attempts on Padme. Sidious got back up, swinging again in desperation. The Force now completely severed from him, Anakin grabbed his saber hand and broke it. Lifting the Sith Lord up by his neck, Obi-Wan watched along with other Jedi who began landing nearby. Anakin created a Force wall around him, not allowing anyone to stop him. His power was more than Anakin knew how to handle now, and he slammed Sidious into the ground before stabbing him, ending the life of Sidious with ease. Anakin came to. He was in some sort of a trance, and as Sidious died, he began to hear Obi-Wan calling his name. Anakin let go of the Force wall he'd created and dropped to his knees. He could barely recognize himself with his power. In such little time, he'd gone from Jedi Padawan, training in a simple spar with Obi-Wan, to defeating 2 Sith Lords and becoming a Jedi Master. As Anakin looked around to the other Jedi, he knew he held the power to defeat them all if he wanted to. He had the power to become whatever he wanted. But what he wanted right now, for the rest of his life, was to simply be with Padme. So he went with the Jedi to the Jedi Council, to an emergency Senate hearing, where he described the details of his encounter with Palpatine, how him and Obi-Wan saw him choke Dooku, and then they were framed as Palpatine pulled Obi-Wan into Dooku, killing him. Then they explained that the attack on Palpatine forced him to reveal his identity. Prison guards at the scene were able to confirm this story, that Palpatine had begun wielding a red blade. The Senate acknowledged that if the Jedi had wanted Dooku dead, they could have just killed him on Geonosis. In the end, the Senate ruled that Anakin and the Jedi were innocent, that they were fighting the leader of the Separatists. Without Dooku or Sidious, the Separatists crumbled and the Republic was able to rather easily overcome, winning the war. Grievous was killed in battle, and the Republic was victorious. Within the Jedi Order, Anakin was offered another great honor, a council seat now, for his heroics and his clear power. But Anakin denied this honor. and temporarily would leave the Jedi to live with Padme and to learn to control his power without it overtaking him. He was more scared of himself than anything else, and over the next few years, Anakin truly did learn to use his power for good, to harness it all, to control it, becoming the most powerful being the galaxy could remember. Anakin rejoined the Jedi and got a seat on the council, despite having a wife and twin children. The Jedi had adapted after allowing the Sith to rule and rise under them without ever knowing, and the Jedi were now allowed to form attachments as one of their new alterations to the code. Throughout the next couple decades, Anakin would be openly married to newly promoted Chancellor Amidala. Yoda would pass on to the Force, and Anakin would be made the Grand Master of the Order. Grand Master Skywalker and Chancellor Amidala helped to raise Luke and Leia. Obi-Wan was Anakin's second in command, but he spent a lot of time on Mandalore, now married to Duchess Satine. With Anakin reaching his full potential, he'd embraced the light side, living a rather happy life. So that's where we're going to end it. Yeah. Tell me what you thought. I don't know if anyone's done this. I know they've spent a lot of what if Anakin reached his full potential, but I wanted to have him do it even earlier. Next time, what if he did it during The Phantom Menace? No, just kidding. Anyways, this one was probably my craziest fan fiction. If that's not your tempo, if that's not your vibe, sorry. I do hope you enjoyed. I know it went pretty wild. I could have kept going down like Anakin and Obi-Wan being framed, but I just wanted them to completely overcome it and yeah, show how powerful Anakin was with him defeating Sidious. George Lucas once stated that if he did reach his full potential, he would be twice the power of Sidious, so wanted to integrate that. I wanted to have him use Sever Force and a couple other of the crazy light side powers. Alright, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next video.